Welcome to Military Matters, hosted by retired Major Ricky Harold and Lieutenant Colonel George Fleck. This is a show about, for, and everything regarding veterans. We're all about the issues impacting the lives of our military brothers and sisters, and our mission is to always be insightful, factual, and thought-provoking. 1000.
Hey, welcome to Military Matters. This is Major Ricky Harold, and I've got a great individual as a guest today. His name is Blake. He runs NV Retirement Planners, and he's an Air Force veteran, and we're going to have him on today. He's going to talk about his story as well as he's a financial advisor, what he can do for our veterans out there and their families. So, Blake, without further ado, kind of introduce yourself. Let us know a little bit about your military background, and as we go, we'll ask some questions.
Yeah, my name's Blake Candreva. I'm the owner and operator of Nevada Retirement Planners. I was in the Air Force for 8 years and deployed overseas to Afghanistan in 2011 and got out in 2014.
Okay. What was your Air Force specialty code?
So I was a aircraft structural mechanic. So I worked on all the sheet metals for AC-130s and did all the paint for them too.
Okay. For some of our veterans out there, especially our ground pounders, AC-130, that's the air to mud bird that chews up the ground, right?
Yep.
That's a good thing because, between the A-10 and the AC-130s and stuff, that's all the Army cares about is you're softening up the front end of the battlefield.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So we appreciate that a lot. So you did 8 years in the Air Force. Your final rank was what?
I was at E4.
Okay. So you were basically was that a senior airman?
Senior airman, yes, sir.
Senior airman. Okay. I don't know. Does the Air Force still have sergeants, or they just go to staff sergeant? I mean, I'm not sure what the modern Air Force enlisted accommodation at the mid ranks are.
Yeah, they go to sergeant.
They do
E5.
have a sergeant?
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, I mean, they did when I was in, but I'm not sure. They changed a lot of the structural positions. You got a lot of senior NCOs and stuff now that they have chief ranks and stuff like that. That E9 was a new rank that they came up with in the early 80s and before your time, obviously. But yeah, that was a super rank. But then also they got rid of the warrant officers in the Air Force. By the way, just for our listeners out there, at the time, the Department of Defense came out with an edict that they were going to get rid of warrant officers. So the only branch of the service that followed that edict was the Air Force. The Marines, the Navy, and the Army kept their warrant officers. They said, we don't care. We'll do some internal restructuring, but we're not getting rid of the rank, So it was kind of interesting from a military standpoint, because depending on what branch of service, you're either called a chief or you're called Mr. When you're a warrant officer. So it's the best rank in the military, in my opinion, because I was a warrant officer in the Army for a while. Because you're not a commissioned officer, but you're a warrant officer. You're not an enlisted guy, but you're a technician. No, it's because nobody knows exactly who you are or what you do. Everybody leaves you alone. So it's a good rank to be. So go ahead, Blake. Tell us a little bit about your local history here in the community, how long you've been here, and what are your aspirations and what are your goals?
Yeah, so I've been here pretty much my whole life. I went to elementary school here, middle school, high school.
Which high school?
Went to Galena.
Okay.
And then I went to UNR and graduated from UNR.
And what was your degree in?
Communications, and my minor was in business administration.
Communication. So you could be in broadcasting if you wanted to be in it, right?
Yeah, a little bit.
Did you ever work radio?
I did not, no.
Okay. What in communications did you do?
It's a very broad spectrum kind of degree. Really, what it did for me was teach me just how to communicate with people, to properly listen to them, to really kind of help dive into getting to the root of problems, which is what has really helped my career out. Because as a financial advisor, you can ask just one question and people will give you all sorts of different answers. And you really have to learn how to listen to what they're saying and really dissect what it is that they're trying to get to. Because if you can't help them discuss their goals and what they're trying to accomplish with their money, then you really shouldn't be a financial advisor, because you're advising them on the wrong things. If you can't get to the direct problem and what it is that they're trying to solve.
Well, that's an interesting ideology, because in my experience is that half the people I've ever met have no idea what their goals are or what their aspirations are or what their future financial situation. When you ask a financial advisor, say, well, what are your goals? A lot of people can't give you an answer. Is that true?
It's very true. I mean, even when we look at people that are 2-3 years away from retirement, they're still telling me the same thing, that they don't know what it is that they want to do. And that's where you have to start poking and prodding them a little bit to get them to open up to you about, are they world travelers, or is it something where they just want to travel the U.S., and really trying to help people realize that, if this is what I want to do, here's how much money I'm going to have to spend.
Gotcha. One thing I did learn in my own experience was that what you think you want to do when you're in your 20s and 30s or 40s for retirement is not anything close, even a scintilla close to what it's going to actually be like when you retire. And then your whole goals and aspirations at the time of retirement are completely different than what they were 10 years before.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they radically change. I mean, life changes on the drop of a hat. So, when people are talking about what they want to do with the rest of their lives once they get to retirement, also changes quite frequently.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, well, because just your environment and your, not just your financial, but your personal, your health situations, all that changes like you said, on a dime. So what you thought was important to you, a couple years ago isn't even on the radar today, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and that's why really, when we're sitting down and trying to help people dissect what it is that they're looking for, we're giving them, a monetary goal. Because if they're saying that, they want to travel the world, I'm going to say, okay, well, where do you want to go? How much money do you want to spend? And then we get that. We start diving down into, okay, well, I'm going to need $10,000 a year to do the kind of traveling that I want. Well, what that then gives us going forward is, okay, we've set this up for $10,000 a year. Now, that $10,000 a year doesn't have to be every year. That's what we set it up for. But, if you want to do some grand vacation next year, maybe, or the year after, maybe you don't do it for the next year. You just realize that you have $10,000 set away, and that can be to go travel the world. That can be you don't need it. You can use $20,000 the year after that, or it can be just that $10,000 is what I have, and I'm going to go out and travel the U.S., or I'm going to do something nice for my family, or I just know that I now have a budget that we have set so that if things change and if things, go one way or the other, or I want to do something different, I know that I have a set budget that I have to work within. So,
yeah, I understand. One of the things that I realized, and maybe you can amplify on this, is that the value of the return on your money and the value of your actual money as far as spending power has changed radically. I mean, when I was a young man, I always said if I ever made $1 million and had $1 million, I'd have some real serious money, right? And now $1 million it's nice to have $1 million, but it has no. It's like being the difference between being a wealthy person and a rich person. whatever determination you make for those attributes. But $1 million 50 years ago was a substantial amount of money. Today, it's a good amount of money, but it ain't substantial. You couldn't live on $1 million. Well, you could, but you'd have to be frugal about it. But
$1 million.
$1 million isn't exactly a lot of money these days.
But because the cost of everything goes up, and if it goes, even if it goes up 3 to 5%, do that over 20 years, and you can see the devaluation of your money, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. That's why it's real important that you sit down and you set goals for yourself, and you find out what it is that you have as a budget, because the old adage of using no more than 4% of your overall portfolio value so that you don't eat into the principal is very different. Because
what is it now?
we haven't even done a study on what it is now, if 4% is okay, because what we're really looking at is, what are your goals? Do you have a goal to leave money over to someone? Because what we should be doing, instead of saying like, oh, you can't spend more than 4% of your entire portfolio your entire life, that's if you want to never touch principal. So if you're going to use, if you have $1 million and you're only going to pull 4% from that, that's going to leave $1 million to your heirs, right? That's what that...
Right, because if you never touch the principal, it's still there.
So is that really what you want to do? And that's where talking to somebody and saying, well, do you want to leave $1 million to your kids or your family? Or if you don't have somebody, what's, that you really want to leave it to, is that the correct calculation then for you?
Right, right.
We should be running a full written retirement plan that shows a modest return. We usually use a 5% return, just because, most of our clients, once they get to retirement, are looking at dialing back the amount of risks that they're taking. So if we're using a 5% return, then we have to take a look at the budget that we set for you, how much money you're going to need out of those accounts, so that we can really show you, okay, if we're spending X dollars a year and we have 5% on average return, here's how long your money's going to last you. And here at the end of your life is how much money could possibly be left over if, you die at a certain age. And then that way it just gives you a little bit more of a planning tool of saying, all right, so I got to hit a 5% return to make my money last this long. And this is the amount of money that I'm looking to roundabout have for my heirs when I pass. So,
yeah, I understand that. One of the things that I think it's made it tough for people like yourself is that, when we've always, through modern history, every generation has lived longer and better and healthier than the prior generation. And now we've run into a situation where for American men, it's just the opposite. The life expectancy has gone down, not a lot, but it's gone down from like 78 or 79 to like 75 because of all other factors. But, the pandemic didn't help out. But is that true or not?
It is. But if you're married, that life expectancy is longer. So something else to take into account. Those that are married, the statistics have shown that they live 5 to 10 years longer.
I would have thought the opposite.
That's because you're married more than once. It's not the length of the years. It's the quality of those years. Yeah, we have to deal with that. So, I know that because you've talked to me about it, you have some individuals that deal with military retired veterans and for estate planning. Is that right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We have a couple of different programs that we use. It really just depends on the level of complexity that we have for their estate needs and their planning needs. We have some lower cost availability for simple plans that we'll put together for people that just have some retirement accounts, some bank accounts, and, a house or something like that. But once it starts getting into, you own multiple businesses, you have houses in other states, things like that, then we have to, step it up and use some different resources that cost a little bit more.
So just a ballpark, what would be the average cost for John Q. Public out there who wanted to have estate planning done? How much money are we talking about it's going to cost them to establish a trust?
Well, to John Q. Public that's gone out and just talking to a regular lawyer, you're probably looking at, I've seen it all over the place here in Reno, where it's gone from $3,000 to $8,000, just depending on the firm that you're looking at. And that's where, the process that we use, that we have access to, we help eliminate some of the cost of that, because we have the questionnaire that you're normally sitting down with a lawyer and spending $350 an hour to sit there and talk to them about your answers to where you have all your cash, where you have all your investments, where your house is, all this stuff that you spend a couple of hours just sitting there getting all this information to them, and they're charging you, $350 an hour. Whereas if you're sitting down with me where I'm not charging you for that, we're cutting that cost by almost half, because we don't have that $350 an hour tag to just sit there and get the information from them. So for our clients, we get all the information, then we take that, give it to the lawyer, and then the lawyer just puts together what they need and sends it to us. So, then you're not having another meeting where you're coming in to pick it up and they're charging you another $350. Yeah,
it's all about the billable hours.
Yeah. So we just have an ability to streamline it, whereas, John Q. Public is going to go out and spend a lot more. So finding people that have access to special resources like that. There's even some places, some senior centers that you can go to. The law library down in Washoe County also has special nights. I believe it's Wednesday nights where they have a lawyer that comes in and can help you take a look at, cheaper ways of doing things. But definitely taking a look at all the resources in your area can help save you a lot of money.
Yeah, of course, people have to know what the resources availability are, and most people literally don't have a clue. My impression is the super majority of people, when it comes to money, they're clueless. They don't even know how to budget a budget, let alone how to do estate planning, let alone how to do long-term planning. And even those who are proactive, this is just my impression over the last 70 years, is that people who are even proactive with money aren't really good and disciplined on how to allocate that money. Have you seen that?
Yeah, for the most part, it's pretty true. We get, a lot of clients that are in that same position. They just, they're coming to us saying that they're going to retire in 3 years. And I say, okay, well, how much money are you spending? How much are you going to need in retirement? And they just have that blank stare.
Yeah, because they honestly don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's also one of those things where they've been making money, so they've never really been too worried about it. I'm making X dollars a year and all my bills are paid and I'm happy. And what do I care what I'm spending? And then
because they're not looking at a retirement, and they're not looking at what are they going to have to live on, and how they're going to have the money to just see at a modicum amount of a lifestyle change, right?
Yeah, and that's the biggest switch that we really have to turn on in people, is that you now have a finite amount of money. Once you retire, once you cut that spigot off and you're no longer working, you have a finite amount of money, and making that money last is going to require that you have a plan for it. I mean, if you want to go without a plan, you can, but that's probably going to end up making it very difficult for you in the end when, you're don't have any money left in your retirement accounts and you're living off from Social Security on a fixed income that, really isn't going to meet your basic needs. This is one of the issues that my father has run into, is that he, thankfully enough for me, he put more into raising me and taking care of me than he ever did into his retirement account. So he doesn't have that to fall back on. And yet when he looks at Social Security, his Social Security amount that he receives is not enough to make his monthly bills.
Well, of course, because Social Security was never supposed to be a retirement program. It was supposed to be supplemental. In other words, because back in 1936, when Social Security came into existence, it was there to help the widows and orphans whose husbands would pass away and they would have nothing. That would give them some financial cushion. But primarily, it was a program for those, because most people at that time had some sort of pension, regardless of where they worked in industry or they worked in like businesses or whatever. They got some kind of pension, but the pension wouldn't cover the entire amount of the cost of living in the future. So they came up with the Social Security program to make that extra amount of money to add on to your pension to give you a good quality of life. And it has never changed in the whole program, has never changed in the sense that we talk about inflation, right? But we'll just take, for instance, the maximum amount you can receive in Social Security is pretty close to a little over $4,000. Well, as you and I all know, $4,000 a month, if you're getting the maximum, barely pays the essentials for cost of living every month. And we're just talking about living here, not in Los Angeles or San Francisco or some other place where the cost of living is skyrocketed. I mean, even though the cost of living here is higher than, say, maybe even, Tegucigalpa, Honduras or someplace. but you know what I'm saying? I'm just saying that, so even if you got the maximum amount of Social Security, it wouldn't come close to your just general cost of living, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's part of the issue that comes with there never being much taught in schools about finances. I mean, I never took one finance class growing up. Nobody taught me how to, when I got my first credit card, I didn't understand, APR percentages and, how much I was really going to be paying. And, there's just a lot of things that.
Well, it's like a trap, financial trap.
Yep. There's just a lot of things that people have never been exposed to that they should have learned a long time ago, and unfortunately that's the reality for a lot of people, and the same reality, my father went through. And that's part of the reason that, I got into this business, was to help people avoid going through some of the pitfalls that my family went through.
Do you think that the school systems need to do a complete rescheduling of their agenda as far as from academia when it comes to your last couple of years in high school or your first couple of years in college, regardless, that you learn basic budgeting, you learn basic retirement, you learn basic financial management just on a rudimentary basis, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that it should be part of the curriculum because, no matter who you are, how old, how young, what nationality, class, wherever you come from, money is what is going to run your
managing
life.
Money, yeah.
And if you don't know how to manage it properly, you're just setting yourself up for failure. So having just the basic skill set to understand what's going on, what you're getting charged, what you should be putting away. Because if you started in your 20s, just a general rule of thumb, if you started in your 20s, you should be putting 10% of your paycheck into your 401k. And if you start that, by the time you get to retirement, you should have enough to continue, living off from the same kind of budget that you've had. Now, if you get into your 30s and you start, then it jumps up 10%. So you're putting 20% of your paycheck away. If you wait until your 40s, then you should be putting 30% of your paycheck away. So, if you had just started in your 20s and been able to say, okay, I know and I understand that this is going to, how it's going to affect my financial future, then maybe the decision you made when you were 20 and you left that job and you had a couple $1,000s in the 401k and you're like, just cash it out and give it to me. And instead would have left that $2,000 in there in your 20s, and you now get up to retirement age in your 60s. Think about how much that would have grown in that time, especially if, you know, your money's supposed to double every 10 years with an average of a 10% return. Then, you know, from your 20s to your 60s, you're going to have quite a return on any money that you've left in there. So,
oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, myself personally, when I was in my 20s, I was saving probably 12% a year into my retirement. But when I got into my 30s, I jumped that up to 15 to 18%. But when I got into my 40s, I was taking 35% of my income and putting in retirement. And then when I turned 50, it allowed me to do an extra $5,000 that you could bump into your IRAs that you weren't allowed to do before. And I maxed all that out right up to the very end. So I was more than 50% of my income in my last 5-6 years was going right into my retirement.
yeah. Yeah. And that's, I mean, when you've got the ability to do that, that is amazing, you know.
Well, I had a government salary, so I wasn't getting rich. But, you know, because over the years, if you manage your money just mediocrely, you can, by just a little bit of savings, you can actually, your spending patterns, regardless of what your hobbies are or what you like to do, it doesn't really matter, because the amount of money you're going to spend doesn't really vary tremendously, unless, of course, you have some catastrophic illness or some, unforeseen catastrophe. Your income level really adjusts with inflation to a certain percentage, but overall, your accommodations and living, your lifestyle doesn't radically change much, but your income levels will rise and fall based upon whatever job you have, of course. But it means that you can save money so that you have a rainy day, that you don't have to be in debt. You don't have to go to a credit card to pay off some emergency. You actually have a rainy day fund. And this isn't that hard. You know, one of the things that I always tell my wife is that it's kind of a joke between the two of us, is that I have what we call pocket money. And what I do is I take $5 bills in my pocket and $1 bills, and I save them until I get to $100. And then I put them I get a $100 bill from the bank, and then I put it in a pouch in the safe, right? And I've been doing this now for about 4 years. You know how much money I have in pocket money? Just take a guess.
Couple grand.
Try $11,000. And that's just pocket money.
Yeah.
And how hard is it to take a few dollars out of your pocket and put it with a Band-Aid, a rubber band, and then set it aside, and then when you get them, until you get over a short period of time. I'm not talking years. I'm talking 5 or 6 months. You have, like you say, couple $1,000. I mean, it really does add up, and that's just pocket. Think about if you just took, like you said, 10%. So if you get $1,000 a week and you take $100 out of that $1,000, have you missed that $100? If you never got it, you never spent it, how would you miss something that you didn't have? And you know, an easy way to save that I found out when I was really young was that every time you got a pay raise, every time you got a cost of living raise, you took some of that for yourself, but you take half of that, 50% of that, and put it into a savings account. It's a simple way to save money. You don't miss something you don't have. So how did you say, oh, well, I got an extra $500. I took $250 of the $500. I used it for myself for what it costs of living, but the other $250 goes right into the bank. You didn't miss it.
Yeah.
It's a simple way to save.
Oh, yeah.
But people, if they thought about it and they actually reacted and actually did something about it, a lot of people would be a lot better off.
Yeah, that's really the difficult part, is putting the plan into action. That's a reason why I think that a lot of people hire financial planners to do this kind of stuff, is because, then you've got somebody holding you accountable. When my clients come to me and they say, all right, well, I'm going to go buy a new car for $80,000. And I say, is that in your budget? And they say, no, but I just want it. And it's like, okay, well, then I can say, you can have the money. It's your money. I'm just managing it. However, if you decide to do this, here's the consequences down the line.
Right.
And just give them the full picture of what this is going to do for them. And generally that takes away a lot of people see something brand new and shiny. They're going to be like, I want it right now. I got to pay for it right now. And
instant gratification.
Instant gratification. Yes, sir. And so
I want an Oompa Loompa now!
Being able to have somebody that's holding you accountable and being able to show you how it's going to affect you, not just saying, no, you shouldn't do that. No, you can do that, but here's what it's going to cost you. It just really, I've seen it make a huge difference for clients when they're
given the whole picture. Now, I've seen a lot of people who are in their mid 60s and early 70s, and they're working at Walmart as a greeter, or they're working as a cash register, and they're kind of hunched over and they look very sad. And you say, well, it's unfortunate that you have to, at this age, you have to work. And I said, why is that? And they said, well, I never saved money. And I said, why didn't you ever save money for retirement? And almost all of them said, never expected to live this long.
Yeah. Yep. That's the same thing my father said. I tried to urge him not to take Social Security early at age 62. And he said, well, I'm not going to live much past 70, so I'm not worried about it. Well, he's 74 now, so that's really come back to hurt him.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, unfortunately, being a government employee, I didn't have a choice. We had to take it at 62. We weren't given the option of waiting until we're 65 or 66 or 67, because part of your retirement is your Social Security. And so therefore they get, it's, what is it? 28% or something like that. That is less of the 100% that you get for Social Security. I think you get 72% on the dollar for your Social Security at 62 versus at full retirement age.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So in other words, it's the government's way of shaving your ability to get your full retirement accountability.
Yeah.
It's bean counters. You can always tell when you're getting the shaft, because the bean counters figure a way.
Oh yeah.
They can figure every way but loose how not to give you money.
Yep.
Yeah. And regardless if you earned it or not, that's just absolutely true. So, we always want to mention here, because we have Concerned Veterans for America, and they're one of our sponsors. And we always like to say, Ryan Gershman, thank you for your service, and thank you that what they do is they actually go out and advocate for our veterans through service organizations, as well as through congressional committees and congressional authorities to work for veterans, to make sure that veterans are not just getting their benefits, getting benefits that actually help the veterans.
All right, and now a message from one of our sponsors of the show, At Ease.
Do you support our U.S. military? Well, imagine it took less than a minute to salute our veterans, and a little bit of your time was the only deciding factor. I'm Marine Corps veteran Ryan Gershman with Concerned Veterans for America. We're a nonprofit of veterans for all Americans. We push proposed policy and current bills affecting us all. When you go to cv4a.org, you simply sign a letter of support for proposed bills, and we then forward those letters to your federal representatives. It takes only a few clicks to stand up for those who serve and your fellow Americans. You can even call me, Ryan Gershman, directly at 775-531 with your questions. As a thank you, you'll also get access to register for special events in the Great Basin area for making a difference. Go to www.cv4a.org and learn more about Concerned Veterans for America.
So, I mean, we always talk about some of the basics, like you get some compensation for medical disabilities, but, you know, some of the VA benefits that are out there for our veterans is not just the GI Bill for education, but we also have home ownership. You get a VA loan. And so you can, for those who don't have a lot of money to put down on a house, a VA loan's 100%. I mean, you don't have to put anything except closing costs down. So you can get into a house regardless of where you live or how much it costs to purchase a new home or a refinanced home or whatever. You can use your GI Bill to offset those costs. That's a benefit that every veteran has earned. And a lot of them don't even know or don't use it, or being, I don't know why, but a lot of them talk them out of using their VA loans. Do you even know why they do that?
I would have no idea why. To be honest, the only real reason that I could ever imagine that someone would talk about not using your VA, and I'm not a mortgage person.
No, so. I don't presume that you would.
I don't know if the mortgage insurance could be a reason why, where if you had the 20% to put down so you could knock off the mortgage insurance, I don't know if you can do that with the VA loan too. I've actually never looked into that, but that would be the only reason I could even fathom that someone would say not to use a VA loan.
Yeah. MIP, which is what you're talking about, mortgage insurance protection, that's to insure the lender. That's not for you. You're paying their cost on their money to protect themselves against you maybe in the future possibly defaulting. This is crazy. I mean, the banks are already insured up to a dollar amount. So when you pay MIP, you're paying for the profits that they may not have gotten.
Yeah.
Isn't that nuts? I think that's nuts. If you anyone out there listening can figure out how not to pay MIP, I would suggest that you go and do due diligence and figure out, because there's so many ways in the mortgage business that you don't have to pay MIP, but it's just a default. I mean, they just throw that down as an option, and people just think that they're required to pay for that, and they're not. It's not a requirement unless you have super, super bad credit or something like that.
Yeah.
So you were talking about, active investment management. That's one of your big things, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I think that's something that I'll have to plead the fifth on for right now, just because there's certain things we can talk about when it comes to investment management, and can't really be giving any
financial advice
over the air that hasn't.
Well, everybody's financial advice is tailored to them anyway, right?
Yep.
So it's an individual basis. It's not a group basis or whatever the case is. But you do your individual planning for people, but you don't do like small businesses or anything, do you?
Well, we can. If you want to open an investment account for your business, you can do that, and we can help out with that too.
Is that something that is a routine basis, or just?
I've never, in the 15 years I've been doing this, I've never had one, but it is something that is possible.
So like if you're, say you have a small daycare or you have an auto mechanic shop or something, these would be the people you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
And I would hope that all of them have some sort of financial planning for their businesses, because anytime you have a business, whatever the business might be is, and correct me if I'm wrong, obviously you want to be successful in the business, but it's not just how you spend the money that costs for the business, but how you future plan for, do you want growth in your business? Do you want to expand your business? Do you want to franchise your business? I mean, there's all kinds of different modes and methods, because you took financial business management, right? Mm-hmm. So isn't these sort of the concepts that these individuals get concerns about?
Oh, yeah, and that's where you really have to, again, take a look at the overall plan that they're trying to work towards. Just like you said, are they trying to grow the business? Are they trying to, really dive into, have they been having a lot of turnover and putting a lot of money into that. And how are they going to retain these employees that keep leaving? You know, how do you make that better so that you can, you know,
Retain
keep
good employees, yeah.
good employees, which in turn keep good customers?
Yeah, I guess one of the things I've found just in the radio business is that it's not even the amount of money you pay people. I mean, that is a factor, of course, but it's a lot of it has to do with growth potential. It's with upward mobility for individuals. It's not just a paycheck, but a lifestyle.
Yeah.
Kind of like a lot of these people in the entertainment business and in the broadcast business, it's about the lifestyle.
Yeah. Another huge thing for people that I've found is benefits. You know, are you offering that? Okay. Are you offering that paid time off? Are you, you know, giving people sick leave? You know, there's just a lot of things that can really factor into what's keeping these people's decision to stay there.
Right. Additional benefits that would be otherwise than money. Yeah. Yeah. Basically, you're talking about quality of life.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Americans are the worst people in the world when it comes to vacations. They can be offered 2, 4, 6, 8 weeks vacation. And believe it or not, 70% of them, they don't take their vacations.
Yeah.
And they're afraid that if they're not getting the work done, or when they get back, they have twice the amount of work. So when they're even on vacation, they're still worried about work. So,
Yep.
So, you know, taking a vacation is more of a burden than it's, and it really does help the mental health of your employees when they take vacations. I mean, it really is. I mean, the governments and industry don't give vacations because they want people not to come to work. They do it because the health of the individuals get a better worker out of them by giving them time off and vacation time. I mean, it makes them physically and mentally better employees.
Yep.
Yeah.
Dad, I haven't seen a car for an hour.
Oh, shut up, Audrey. You don't think Dad knows where he's going?
Thank you, Russ.
You're lost.
Ma, I saw some detour signs.
I didn't see any.
I saw them when you and Mom were trying to fold the map.
Audrey, when they close the road, they put up big signs like this one.
So, speaking of your work, what more would you like our listeners to know about you personally and your business? Yeah, and by the way, your phone number, can you give out your phone number to people and your email so that anybody who wants to contact you, they have that information?
Yeah, our telephone number is 5-674-2222. And if you'd like to email me, you can get a hold of me at Blake at N as in Nancy, V as in Victory, retirementplanners.com.
Okay. So listen out there, folks. Remember, he said 775-674-2222. That's the phone number to reach them. You can always leave a message if no one answers the phone or they're busy. And, of course, you've got the email that you can get a hold of them at Blake at nvretirementplanners.com. So, Blake, kind of give us a heads up on where do you think the financial situation, I know we've talked personally about this year might be in a good year. Now, you can't forecast are people going to make money, but you can look at cycles and kind of give us your intuition on how you think that 2026 is going to look.
You know, for the moment, barring all political and personal feelings about what's going on, you know, you got to take a look at the underlying structures. You know, is unemployment up? No. Is the gross demand for product down, or our GDP? No. You know, other things you're looking at is the consumer price index, which was something that, you know, last April when the tariffs were announced, people were saying, oh, the consumer price index is going to go through the roof. People are going to have to start paying so much money for all these goods and services and this, that, and the other. And, you know, they just recently reviewed CPI and it was the exact same that it's been. You know, there was no 30% increase in it due to the tariffs. So when we're taking a look at,
fundamental
things. I know there's a lot of crazy things going on in our country and the world right now, but when you're looking at the fundamentals, just that right there is showing us that as a country, we're on the right track. We've been making moves to ensure that, the issues that we had when COVID do not happen again, where our suppliers are in different countries and we're having to scramble once we can't get those shipments in because of, some worldwide issue going on. It's just the fundamentals
reshoring
are solid from everything we've seen so far. So what I'm looking at is if I feel like the fundamentals are solid, then, as things progress, that's where I feel comfortable with, being in an aggressive stance when it comes to my investments, because I know that at least the basic fundamentals are set.
Gotcha. So you think that 2026 might be an advantageous year, a banner year, maybe? I don't know if I'm going overboard.
I think it'll definitely be an advantageous year for sure. To say banner year, who knows? I mean, I look at, just in the 27 days we've been in January so far, I have a lot of clients' accounts that are up 2% already. So, if you take a look at that and we continue down the same path, that's 24% by the end of the year.
Yeah, at a minimum.
So that's definitely in no way saying that, this performance is going to be any indication of what's going to happen in the future.
Right.
But it's just to say that, if you have money that's been sitting on the sidelines or, you've been too scared to pull the trigger, well, when is the time going to be? When are you going to feel comfortable enough to take that step and start, trying to grow your money as you should be? And I think that this is definitely a year that will be
growth potential year.
Yeah.
I tend to agree with that. And I've been watching the markets for 50 years, so I have a little bit of experience. I'm not great at it. Matter of fact, I'd rather have somebody like yourself manage my money than me have to sit there every day and go over and look what the S&P is doing and looking how can I invest X amount of dollars into what kind of a mutual fund or individual stock portfolio or something like that. Even though I have a small dabbling of that with Charles Schwab, I do that on my own for fun and games. I guess it's fun and games money that I do that for. Even though if the sad part is if I make money, it just means I add more money to the treasury because I have to pay taxes. It doesn't really help me out financially, even when I make money, because they get it all back in taxes. But I still dabble a little bit in it just for fun and to see if I can actually pick some stocks that make some money with opportunities that I've had in the past that I didn't take up the mantle and buy my Microsoft stock at $6 a share, or my Netflix stock at $5 a share. So I've had opportunities that I didn't take the plunge, and you didn't have to put a lot of money in to get a big return on your money. It's just like you say, if you have somebody like yourself who's got the foresight and the training and the ability to say, hey, listener out there, you got an extra few grand here, and here's a startup that, there's by no means can make money for you, but at the very minimum, if it hits, it's like winning the lottery, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And it can be daunting to start that task, but, I always try and tell people that if you're trying to get into it and you're trying to, start dipping your toe into the water, then you should start looking at the companies that you use every day.
Right. I've heard that before. Go ahead.
And it's just one of those things where, you use a computer every day. So, or you start seeing yourself doing that more. Maybe you start buying Apple products because you like Apple, or you start buying, Samsung products because you
or
like
Dell or whatever.
Yeah, whatever it is, it's just one of those things where you're like, I use this product because it makes my life simpler. Or I go to Costco because I like the deals that they have, or Target, because whatever it is,
or Chevron, even though it's a very expensive gasoline. But if you buy your gasoline at Chevron, why would you not want to invest in Chevron, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I try, and at least just explain to people is that, if you're wanting to take the step and you're not wanting to, employ the services of someone like myself, then your best place to start would just be looking at, the companies that you enjoy and that you like. And, if you don't have the money to buy, a share of Apple
or Disney stock or something.
Yeah, because it's going to cost you $250 or $300. Then what you should do is be looking for mutual funds or exchange traded funds. Exchange traded funds are probably going to be your best bet for your lowest cost. And find an exchange traded fund that includes the stocks. Look through their prospectus will tell you
who they invest in.
And just look through those companies. Are these a bunch of companies that I believe in? Because if there's a bunch of companies in there that I believe in, then maybe I should just buy that whole exchange traded fund or mutual fund, whichever it is that you're using. And then that way that you are invested in some of the companies that you like. And that way you feel more confident about that decision the stock market isn't a rocket straight to the top. It's ups and downs and lefts and rights. So if, the stock does take a short dip for a while, or even, for a year or more, you're looking at these companies saying, I still believe in it. I still know that, a couple of years ago, Costco stock was down 20%, and it came back within the year, but
it's the old adage, buy low, sell high, right?
Yep. So it's just really about finding something that you believe in, or finding somebody that you trust enough to make those decisions and explain those decisions to you, so that along down the line and in the future, hey, they've got my best interests in heart. These companies that they're investing in, I believe in too. They're not going out and, picking these penny stocks that are, for those of you that don't know, penny stocks are very risky companies that sell for pennies on the dollar for you to buy stocks in their company. And the reason why they do that is because their company could, in the future go out of business. And so they're offering people, stock in their company for cheaper prices because they want to get people to believe in them and give them more and more money. So, if you have a big brand name company that's been around for a while, that, has had a good future, or has had a good past and is looking at a good future, then that's where you want to be, because you may not see the same kind of return that you're going to get from a penny stock, 300-400%, but you're not also going to lose all your money that you put into it.
Right. And something else for people that want to buy mutual funds and stuff like that, look at what the management fees are, because they can run anywhere from 1.5% all the way to 10%. I mean, there's a huge variety of management costs, and when it comes to mutual funds, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. And that's kind of why, when it comes to investing, you really need to make sure you're paying attention to fees, because there's a lot of people out there, a lot of advisors that will charge you a fee per year to manage your money. And then they're buying mutual funds with your money. So then you're also getting charged a fee from that mutual fund that you were just talking about. So now you're paying two fees. So you're paying, 2% to the mutual fund. You're paying your money manager 2%. So that's 4% right there. You're losing right off the top just by not paying attention to the fees that you're getting charged.
So if your overall return on your money is 4%, you've got zero, right?
You got zero for the year. Yeah. And even if, they're touting that they get on average 10% returns for clients. If you're paying 4% in fees,
you're getting 6%.
You're getting 6%. You're not getting 10.
Right.
So,
and these are the little things, that hidden fees in the financial management that you don't really know about unless you have somebody competent like yourself that can explain that to these people.
Yeah, and even when you have somebody confident, you still need to be looking out for your own best interests. Because there's a lot of advisors out there that don't talk about fees, that don't talk about the things inside of their accounts that are going to cost additional money to their clients, and they do that as part of their process because they know if they tell somebody that they're going to get charged, 2% for their management fee plus 2% for the mutual fund, nobody's going to want to do that. So they'll just say, "Oh yeah, well my management fee is 2%."
Yeah.
And not explain the rest of it to them.
And also, if you park money in a like a little bond fund or a holding fund, let's say it's a substantial amount of money. You have $100,000 and it's just in there waiting to be invested. But if that money doesn't get invested for like 6 months, they're charging you a fee on that $100,000 that you're getting zero back on, right?
Yep.
That's all part of the general fee cost, right?
Yeah, that's why, again, you just got to make sure that you're having these fees explained to you up front so that you can really determine if that's going to be the right fit for you.
Right. Well, we want to say thank you very much, Blake, because we appreciate you coming on and kind of giving us some information, because it's important for our listeners out there to know how to manage their money, or at least know how to invest their money that they have, so they're going to have at least somewhat of a decent retirement. We appreciate that. So, Blake, give us your phone number one more time, and we'll call it a day.
All right, that's
at Blake at nvretirementplanners.com. And we also remember Concerned Veterans for America. They're one of our sponsors. We appreciate that. Get a hold of Ryan Gershman.
If you are a veteran or active military wanting to start prepping for retirement, make sure to contact Blake. You can email him at blake@nvretirementplanners.com or call.
Thank you very much, Troop, for listening to another podcast episode of Military Matters. Until next time, have a good furlough, and never forget, never surrender, and always be faithful. Dismissed!